My name's Catherine Salt, and I'm the Interim Monitoring Officer for the Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority. It was legally established by the Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority Order 2026 in February of this year, and it's a privilege for me to open this inaugural meeting for the Combined Authority this morning. A few housekeeping matters, first of all, if I may. So as I said, we'll be webcasting this live this morning, and we do offer a warm welcome to anyone viewing online. Fire exit, obviously hoping not for it to be needed, but there is a fire exit if you just go out the door here and just off to the right. That will take you down the stairs where the staff from the Warrington Youth Zone will escort us outside, and the area to congregate is under the bridge just to the left. Please can I just remind everyone to turn off mobile phones or any other devices so there's no distractions during the meeting. So moving on to the first item for the agenda, that's to confirm the appointment of the members to the Combined Authority, as have been appointed by their respective constituent councils. The members are also asked to agree the terms of reference for this board, a copy of which is set out in the Constitution at item 8 of the agenda. Each constituent council has appointed 2 members to the Combined Authority Board with 2 named substitutes, and this is in accordance with the requirements set out in the schedule to that 2026 Combined Authority Order. So the appointed members and their substitutes are as follows. For Cheshire East Borough Council, Councillor Nick Mannion and Councillor Michael Gorman as the members of the board, and substitutes Councillor Lara Crane and Councillor Mark Goldsmith. For Cheshire West and Chester Borough Council, Councillor Louise Gittings and Councillor Shaw, with substitutes Councillor Stuart Bingham and Councillor Nathan Pardo. And for Warrington Borough Council, Councillor Hans Mundry and Councillor Jean Flaherty, with substitutes Councillor Hitesh Patel and Councillor Sue Emery. Does the board agree these appointments and the terms of reference? Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the appointment of chair. Please could I ask for a proposer for nomination? Thank you, Councillor Mannion.
I'm happy to chair Councillor Louise Gittings. Propose Councillor Louise Gittings for chair.
Thank you. So that's a proposal for Councillor Louise Gittings for chair. Have we got a seconder for that, please?
I'm quite happy and willing to second that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Mundry. Are the board happy to vote?
Yes.
All agreed?
Show of hands. Yeah.
All agreed. Thank you, that's great. Well, Councillor Louise Gittins is now appointed as the chair, so I will hand over to Councillor Gittins for the running of the meeting.
Thank you all so much. It's a real honour to be appointed chair of Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority and to take forward the role on what is really such an important day for our region. This moment today is the day that Cheshire and Warrington will change. The establishment of a combined authority will bring power to our area and start to work towards electing a new mayor of Cheshire and Warrington. It's been such a long time in the making, but we're finally here. And there are times where even I had reservations that we'd actually come to this point. So I'm delighted to be here today and to see you all here celebrating this momentous period in our time. So now, from today, we can start to use new powers and funding secured from Westminster to invest in our people, places and businesses. Today is a genuine milestone, and that moment where those powers transfer from Westminster to us in Cheshire and Warrington, and where we begin a new chapter, one where we take control of our own destiny and start to shape decisions about our future. And before this morning, I talked about us daring to dream. And as we look to the future, it's no coincidence we're holding this first meeting today at the Warrington Youth Zone. And I want to thank Dave, Ryan and Indy for welcoming us today and for everything you do. Now, I'm not sure, are they in the meeting? No, they've gone to do other things, but it was so inspirational to come and hear from the young people and hear about their dreams for the future of our borough, our combined authority as well. So what they've built here is absolutely inspiring, and I think it says something important about the kind of future that we want to create for the next generation, because this isn't just a venue for a meeting, it's a statement of our intent and our ambition. We've chosen to be here because the next generation has to be at the heart of everything we do. As leaders, we are determined to deliver. So today's meeting, in many ways, is about getting the basics right. There's a lot of governance, structures, appointments, the essential building blocks, but it's also about something much bigger than that. The decisions that we make over the coming weeks and months won't just affect the next few months or years, but they will shape the future of this region for decades to come. And it's about the commitment we make today to the people of Cheshire and Warrington that we will use these powers responsibly, we'll focus on what matters, and that we will make decisions that genuinely improve lives across our region in a way that people can see and feel in their daily lives. As we begin, we're very clear about the kind of organisation we want to be. Ambitious for our region, rooted in the people and places we serve, and confident about the future we can build together. But we're not here to replicate what's been done elsewhere, whether that's where or how we meet, how we look, how we feel, or how we approach the challenges. We are going to be doing it the Cheshire and Warrington way and looking at the opportunities our region faces. So, as we move forward into the northern, national and international stage, we need to have confidence and optimism, and we're full of that. There's a lot of smiling here today. Because while we may be new, we're starting from a strength, and we're determined to build on those strengths to create more jobs, investment, better public transport and opportunity for everybody in our area. And we'd like to invite everyone in Cheshire and Warrington to join us on that journey. And with that, let's get started with the business of our first meeting. And I think the next important thing we need to do is to appoint a vice chair for the combined authority. So do I have a proposer for a vice chair?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to propose Councillor Nick Mannion.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Shaw. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to second Councillor Nick Mannion. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Authority. So can I see all those in favour as Councillor Nick Mannion as our Vice Chair?
No, you can't.
No, you can't vote for yourself.
Can I vote for them?
I'll vote though. That's clearly carried. Thank you very much. And now we can get on with the rest of the meeting. Now we've done that bit. So the first item, apologies for absence. Really pleased to see on the first day we have no apologies for absence. The second item is declarations of interest. And this is, I think, Kath, can you explain to us why it's important that we declare our interests at each meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously it's vital that members are asked to declare their interest, both on an annual basis. We keep a register of interest, but also then at each meeting, just to declare any interest on any item that's within the agenda. And that's prior to any discussion taking place. So yeah, are there any declarations of interest?
Councillor Gorman.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'd like to declare I'm a trustee of the Cheshire Pension Fund, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is public questions. Now, we have had a number of questions submitted by the public. I'm not sure if we've got any of those people who submitted them in the room today. Okay, so there was some really... Oh, okay. So, would you like to come and speak? You can come and ask your question now. Thank you. And if you just say who you are, and that would be great. And Councillor Garden, I've got you.
This one turned on?
Yeah.
Good morning. My question's a bit of a compound one. It's, what are the combined authorities' top priorities? And how will that help to create a compelling place for the next generation?
Okay, and you, Anthony?
Anthony King, sorry.
Excellent. So I think we will give a full written, I think what we're really keen to do is give you an answer now, but we will do a proper written answer so that you've got that as well, and they will be published in the minutes of the meeting. I think I mentioned some of the things in my opening sort of gambit about our priorities. And I think our immediate priority is to support economic growth and investment across Cheshire and Warrington, because we know that that creates opportunities and underpins stronger communities and public services. But I think alongside that, we're building a strong understanding of the place that we serve. So that's a really big piece of work, and we need to have the evidence, insight and engagement with our communities. I talked about our young people, as well as our business and other partners, to ensure that investment delivers the outcomes that we need. So not just investment for investment's sake, investment so it's delivering the outcomes they need. So our initial focus is on a small number of areas where we can make the biggest difference to growth and opportunity. So for example, unlocking major employment and housing sites, improving transport. Transport comes up a lot when you're talking to people. So connecting jobs and key services, strengthening skills and employment pathways, working with businesses to help people access good jobs and careers. And actually being here today in the Warrington Youth Zone was a deliberate decision, because we wanted to show we were different, but also having young people at the heart of what we're doing, so that we can really build for the next generation. And we need young people to help shape that as well. I think that's probably in a bit of a summary. The other thing, and it was linked probably to a question someone else, was we're all committed to being what's called a marmot region, and that's looking at health inequalities and tackling those. So hopefully doing those bigger things will enable people to live healthier, happier lives for longer.
Thank you, great answer.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. So we have got a number of other questions from the public. So just if there are any members of the public watching this and they want to ask a question, there is a procedure to submit it in advance, and then we're happy to answer those going forward. But we've also got a question from Councillor Gardner. Do you want to come and ask that?
Glasses, otherwise I won't be able to read what I'm saying. Sorry, it was on the screen a minute ago. So may I begin by wishing you and the whole board every success in your endeavours in the coming months. So my question is relating to scrutiny, and I have read the papers, but I want to know, whilst appreciating the infrastructure and protocol surrounding issues of scrutiny of the board's decisions and matters pertaining to audit functions will be formally considered at the AGM of the authority, is it proposed that the scrutiny will be solely a retrospective process, or is it intended that pre-scrutiny will also be part of the scrutiny committee's function? And added to that is, will the scrutiny committee be asked to perhaps bring forward ideas that maybe the board could consider?
Yeah, it's interesting this. I was actually discussing scrutiny with a member of my group last night, and we were talking about the importance of scrutiny in terms of the combined authority going forward, particularly in these early days. So we need to follow best practice in scrutiny, which is about exactly as you described it, so not just retrospective, but there'll be opportunities to do some really deep dives to help inform decision making going forward. So I can't understate, all of us are really committed to that, to not just play lip service to it. And we want to learn from other combined authorities to look at how they're doing scrutiny. And I think if you remember the devolution task group force, we had the chair of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority came to speak to us, and I found that quite inspiring actually. So yeah, absolutely, and I'll formally put all this in writing so it's summarised in the minutes, but yes, all of the above I would suggest.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Look forward to working with you as well. Thank you. Okay, same for elected members. If you've got any questions or anything you want to put to us, please do. That would be great. Okay, right, so moving on to the next item, which is appointment of interim statutory officers.
Chair, I need to leave the meeting.
You do. There's a few of you. Nick, Kath and John have got to go to the meeting while we decide. Yeah. Okay, and I'm going to ask Sandra Rothwell to come and sit next to us. For those who don't know Sandra, Sandra has been absolutely instrumental in getting devolution over the line. She's hides away, but she has been at the forefront of driving this forward. So what this report before you today seeks to approve is a number of appointments of our interim statutory officers. So two important words there, interim and statutory. So we have to, as it is required by law, to appoint a number of officers. So we've got Nick Walkley as the interim chief exec and head of paid service, John Hooton as the interim chief finance and section 73 officer, and Catherine Salt as the interim director of law, governance and compliance and monitoring officer. So just a couple of things before we move on. The Shadow Board approved recruitment to these posts in principle in November 25, so we could get people in place. And the budget for the posts is contained in item 9 of the 26-27 budget report. And appointments are interim so that we can operate legally from day one. And initially these roles are hosted via the constituent authorities, so Cheshire West and Chester will be leading on this until Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority approve its own pay and policies. So before we get a chance for Sandra to say something, could I have a seconder for this, please?
Yes, I'm very willing to second.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mundry. Sandra, I think we've got some questions that we'd just like to clarify. So, Councillor Shaw, can I bring you in first?
Yes, Chair. So there's a couple of parts to it, really. What was the recruitment process across the councils, and who was approached from ECW, and what was their response?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Shaw. So just to clarify the process across these posts, so all of the posts, so the statutory posts and the non-statutory posts within the Combined Authority team, to enable us to effectively be up and running for day one, have been offered as a secondment opportunity across the 3 councils in Cheshire and Warrington, so Cheshire East, Cheshire West and Chester, and Warrington Borough Councils, for as well as Enterprise Cheshire and Warrington. For some of the posts, as was agreed in the report that Councillor Gittins referenced, we also ran a concurrent process with an interim agency to ensure that we could appoint to the statutory post so that we were legally in a position to move forward on day one. So to just clarify in terms of the posts, the Chief Executive post was a dual process. It was offered as a secondment opportunity and also through an interim agency, and we used Penna as the interim agency to do that. There was a full interview process for the Chief Executive that took place earlier this year, and subject to the decision today, Nick was proposed as a preferred candidate. The Section 73 Finance Officer, we received no interest on a secondment opportunity from any of the organisations, so we went through the interim route, an external interim route, and Kath Salt, the Monitoring Officer, came through the secondment route via one of the councils as part of that process.
Okay, thank you very much. Does that answer your question, Councillor Shaw?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Gorman, you've got something you'd like to
Yes, thanks, Chair. I know these are 3 interim appointments. Can I ask a fairly simple question? What is the term of each of these interim appointments, please?
So the interim appointments are for 12 months, aside from the Chief Executive post, which will go beyond the election of the Mayor. And then the board, once the Mayor is in place, will then run an open process to recruit for a full-time Chief Executive.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you, Chair. Could you please give us an update on the progress on the other statutory roles that are referenced in the report?
Thanks, Councillor Flaherty. Yes, so within the report, you'll note there's 7 identified statutory functions that the Combined Authority team need to fulfil. So the report before you today obviously is the Head of Paid Service, the Chief Financial Officer, or Section 73, and the Monitoring Officer. We have successfully, through, again, a recruitment process, as I've described, have a preferred candidate for a Democratic Services and Scrutiny Officer. That post will be in place for June, when we expect to start with the statutory committees, again, which you'll refer to later in the report around the Constitution. The other statutory functions that are listed in the report, so data protection, information risk, are contained within a further secondment recruitment process that we're currently pursuing within the team that the monitoring officer will be taking forward, and again they will be in place for June. And then finally, the Combined Authority Returning Officer is the next agenda item on today's meeting.
Okay, that's smashing. Thank you very much. So the report's been proposed and seconded. The recommendations are shown at number 2, which is about approving the appointment of Nick Walkley to the post of Chief Exec, Head of Paid Service on an interim basis. Approve appointment John Hooton to the post of Chief Finance Officer on an interim basis, and approve the appointment Cass Salt to the post of Director of Law, Governance and Compliance on an interim basis. Can I see all those in favour? That's clearly carried. Thank you very much. So I think they can come back in the room now, but not Nick, because he's on the next one as well. So congratulations on your new role. So item 7, which is the appointment of the Combined Authority Returning Officer, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Nick Mannion to introduce this.
Thank you very much, Louise. Thank you, Chair. This report as it sets out the appointment of our interim Chief Executive, Nick Walkley, as the Combined Authorities Returning Officer, to ensure that the Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority can legally conduct its elections for Mayor in May 2027 and any referendums if and when required. This is a statutory requirement. It's a legal requirement. We do have a returning officer in post, and it should also be noted that first Thursday in May 2027 will be a busy day, because there are separate elections running simultaneously, all out elections in Cheshire West and Chester, in Cheshire East, and also I believe all the near 200 town and parish councils. So some of us will indeed ended up being given 3 different coloured ballot papers on the day. So it's a major logistical operation, and we need to have a returning officer in post as soon as possible to do that, and that's the purpose of this report. I'd ask our monitoring officer, Cass Salt, is anything you need to amplify or add to that?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to actually add just a little bit more about the role of that Combined Authority Returning Officer, if I may. So the CARO, as it's sometimes referred to, it plays a critical role in ensuring that the Cheshire and Warrington's future mayoral election is run properly, fairly and lawfully. As has been stated, the role is required by law, and it gives one named senior officer overall responsibility for for delivering the mayor's election across the whole of the region. The CARO provides a single point of accountability and has the personal legal responsibility for the conduct of the mayoral election, which can't be delegated. So this helps to give confidence to voters, to candidates and to partners that the election is being run to the highest standards. Importantly, when carrying out those electoral duties, the CARO operates independently and can't be directed by the combined authority, the mayor, if in post, or political groups. And that independence is essential to the integrity of the democratic process. The role also ensures consistent delivery across all constituent council areas. It manages legal and operational risks and acts as the main point of contact with the Electoral Commission and government. So without that CARO in place, the combined authority would face serious legal, operational and reputational risks and would not be properly equipped to deliver the mayoral election.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have any questions from members of the board on this? I think Councillor Flaherty.
Yes, thank you. What additional capacity is needed given that separate elections will be running simultaneously in 2 of our constituent councils, and how will that be managed?
Thank you for that question. Yes, the combined authority will clearly need further capacity, so we will be looking to appoint an elections manager to help with that process and help support the CARO, and we are also looking to recruit further as well to our own independent democratic services to be able to support that process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gorman.
Yes. Can I ask what is the estimated total cost for delivering the mayoral election, and what assumptions lie behind those costs? And secondly, can I also ask what is currently held in the elections budget or the elections reserve, and can you reassure us this is adequate for 26-27, please?
Thank you. I think I'm actually going to defer to my colleague John Hooton, who's the Chief Finance Officer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just to expand on that. So the the estimated cost envelope for delivering the mayor election in 2027 is in the region of about 2.5 million. It's quite a significant election, obviously, across the whole region. That's broadly based on assumptions around number of voters. I mean, when you look at the costs of an election, quite a lot of the costs are around things like print and postage and such like, and obviously across the whole region that is fairly significant. Obviously, it's things like staffing and polling stations, as we've already heard. There will be other elections taking place across the region, so some of that cost can be sort of, can be reduced slightly as it's not a standalone election, but most of the cost usually is around is things like print and postage. We have set aside £500,000 in the budget for this year. We'll come to that when we get to the budget item. So the cost will be quite significant next year as an additional cost, an additional something around 2 million to be able to fully fund that election. What we're also planning to do is set an amount of money aside, somewhere between £500,000 and £600,000 a year, so that when we get to the following mayoral election, we're building that up over time. So we haven't had an ability to build up a budget for the 27 election without a bit of a spike in the costs in 27, 28. But when we come to future elections, we're building that into our future approach.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Thanks for that. Councillor Gittins, I think you've got...
Yeah, I have. So item 5, it talks about the options that you've looked at, and option B was to designate an alternative CARO. Can I just ask you what alternatives you looked at and why that was discounted?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we did look at other alternatives during the course of making this decision. So, for example, we looked at chief executives of the other constituent councils, but bearing in mind, with the simultaneous elections running in 2 of the constituent councils, 2 of those chief executives were likely to be running as returning officers for those authorities. We also considered the possibility of constituent council officers, but again, there are demands on capacity and other priorities within those constituent councils. External support often costs more, so whilst considered as an option, that wasn't taken forward. And I think it's fair to note that this appointment, it provides greater capacity to coordinate those cross-council arrangements and provides that clear separation with the statutory electoral duties and any political governance.
Thank you very much. Okay, on that basis, I'm happy to propose to the board the recommendations that are set out on page 15 of this morning's agenda. Do I have a seconder?
Chair, I'm happy to second Nick Walkley.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. And if there's no more questions from the board, I propose we move to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Okay, I hand the baton back to our chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next item is Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority governance arrangements. So this report explains how Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority will... Oh, sorry, you're all... Yes, congratulations on both of your appointments.
We had 3 recounts.
Yeah, it's very close. Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, Nick. So thank you for that. So we're just about to move on to item 8, which is the Combined Authority governance arrangements, which is about how we will operate, including the board, committees, voting, transparency and standards. All quite dry, but really, really important to make sure that we've got that robust governance driving us forward. Kath, do you want to just talk us through the report?
Thank you. Yes, so this report, it marks a significant milestone really for the Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority because it puts in place the governance arrangements that are needed for the authority to operate lawfully, transparently and effectively from this very first meeting. Members of the Combined Authority Board have now been appointed and the process for appointing to non-constituent and associate membership of the board will be commenced at the June annual meeting for the Combined Authority. That will be by approving nominating bodies, with those additional members being formally appointed at a meeting in September. So whilst this process forms part of the report, it's just worth noting that there will be no additional member appointments at this stage, but that's to facilitate that process to happen. So at its core, this report does 3 things. It asks the board to adopt the Combined Authority's first constitution, which sets out how decisions will be made, who's responsible for what, and how the organisation will be held to account. It also seeks approval for the local assurance framework. So that explains how public money will be safeguarded, how investment decisions will be appraised, approved and monitored. And it proposes a small number of targeted delegations to the interim monitoring officer so that essential governance arrangements such as allowances, standards and audit independence can be put in place quickly and properly. So together, as I say, these recommendations will ensure that the Combined Authority is ready to operate, but also recognising it's a new organisation that's going to continue to evolve, and particularly ahead of the election of the first mayor in May 2027. So if I may just go through some of those recommendations. The first major recommendation is to approve and adopt the Combined Authority's Constitution. This sits alongside the statutory rules which are set out in the Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority Order 2026. And they provide the local detail of how the authority will work in practice. The Constitution is structured in 7 parts, so it covers roles and responsibilities of the board, committees and officers, how decisions are taken forward and recorded, financial and procedural rules, ethical standards and codes of conduct, allowances and the management structure. Importantly, the Constitution has been jointly developed with the 3 constituent councils. There's been input from the monitoring officers of each of the constituent councils, senior officers and members through the Shadow Board and the Joint Devolution Task Group. And that collaborative approach has really helped ensure that it reflects the shared priorities and established local governance best practice. Until the election of a mayor in May 27, the Combined Authority will operate under interim non-mayoral arrangements. So during this period, the board, made up of the members of the 3 constituent councils and appointed today, will be the primary decision-making body. Decisions will be taken by simple majority without any casting vote, and the emphasis will be on collaboration and consensus, reflecting this transitional nature of this phase. Day-to-day operational decisions will be taken by officers under a clear scheme of delegation, with safeguards around transparency, publication of decisions and later scrutiny. The report confirms the authority's commitment to strong challenge and accountability from the outset. So 2 statutory committees will be established. There will be an overview and scrutiny committee and an audit and governance committee. While those committees have not been formally established today, they're due to be formally appointed to at the annual meeting in June. In the meantime, existing cross-council member arrangements will continue to provide engagement and informal scrutiny and challenge. To support independence and public confidence, the report asks the board to delegate authority to the interim monitoring officer to establish an independent remuneration panel. That's so that any future allowances can be set independently. Advertise for independent persons for standards matters. Advertise for an independent member of the Audit and Governance Committee, and that's something that's required by law and indeed is best practice. These steps ensure that standards, ethics and audit arrangements will be robust, impartial and aligned with legal requirements. The report also recommends approval of the local assurance framework. So, as I said before, this is a key document. It explains how public money will be protected, sets out how investments will be identified, appraised and monitored. It aligns decision making with the HM Treasury Green Book principles, and it embeds requirements about transparency, value for money, subsidy control and equality. The assurance framework has been developed in consultation with central government departments and will apply to all funding decisions and projects undertaken by the combined authority. Both the local assurance framework and the constitution will be kept under review. And for the local assurance framework, it's now when new funding streams are confirmed, there will be a review at that point, ensuring that the combined authority remains compliant and ready to manage devolved resources effectively. Recognising that this is a new organisation in a period of transition, the report proposes a limited delegation to the interim monitoring officer to keep the constitution and assurance framework under review, particularly to carry out a review in advance of the mayoral elections to ensure it remains fit for purpose. Make any urgent or legally necessary updates when required in consultation with this board, and to report any changes back to the board. This should provide flexibility while also retaining member oversight for any material changes, particularly as national legislation develops with the English Devolution Bill and ahead of any move to mayoral governance. And just finally, the report also asks the board to formally confirm the future elected mayor will use the title mayor as allowed for in the legislation. Legislation does provide several different options and we're legally required to adopt the term we choose, and this report is providing clarity and consistency that it will be a mayor ahead of the 2027 election. So in summary, the report provides governance foundations for the combined authority. It establishes that clear constitution, puts a strong assurance and scrutiny arrangements in place, enables independent oversight, and ensures the authority can operate lawfully, transparently and efficiently from the outset. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kath. That was a really good overview. And I know it was quite long, but I think it's really important for people to understand what this report is about. So I'll be proposing this. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we've got some questions just to clarify a few issues, if that's okay. Councillor Gorman?
Yes, Chair. I'd just like to echo your comment that this may be dry, but it is exceptionally important. And also, thanks to the interim monitoring officer for a very clear explanation there. Thanks, Kat. I welcome this report, Chair, and in particular, the emphasis it places on strong assurance and independent challenge at the very start of the combined authority's life. For a new organisation, it's critical that public confidence is built early, and the arrangements set out here, I feel, do exactly that. I'm reassured by the clear separation between decision-making, officer oversight and scrutiny, even during this interim pre-mayoral period. The commitment to establish an overview and scrutiny committee and an audit and governance committee at the annual meeting in June, alongside interim arrangements with the joint devolution task group, demonstrates that, to me anyway, transparency and accountability are simply not being deferred or diluted. I also support the proposals to appoint independent persons, including an independent member of the Audit and Governance Committee. That independence is vital in providing objective challenge and ensuring that financial management risk and standards are subject to robust external oversight. Finally, Chair, the local assurance framework gives confidence that investment decisions will follow recognised best practice with clear audit trails, value for money assessments and ongoing monitoring. From a scrutiny point of view, this provides a strong platform for effective challenge and continuous improvement as the combined authority matures. Overall, these arrangements give me confidence that scrutiny and audit are being embedded as core principles. Do you want to answer that? Not add-ons. So just to repeat that, overall, these arrangements give me confidence that scrutiny and audit are being embedded as core principles, not add-ons, and I'm very pleased to support the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gorman. So there are a number of other queries, perhaps, that we've got. Councillor Mannion.
Yeah, just following on from Councillor Gorman, are there any known gaps or challenges in our proposed constitution or our local assurance framework that our officers, I appreciate you've only been appointed a few minutes ago, that our officers expect will need early attention with a view to tweaking or amending them in this first year of operation?
Thanks, Councillor Mannion. That's a great question, because there's the enactment of the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill. That's going to require an early review of the Constitution, probably within the next 4 to 6 weeks, to ensure that any new powers and functions are adopted in that governance framework. So that's really one key area. And the establishment of the statutory committees at the annual meeting in June and any other committees or panels may also require some amendment to the terms of reference and the structure of those committees, also to be adopted into the Constitution. There'll be development of new policies, procedures, protocols for the combined authority. Again, this all needs to be fed into that Constitution. So I think it's worth just bearing in mind that it's a living document. It's going to continue to be reviewed and to evolve as the combined authority grows and develops.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Shaw?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So, I mean, this is kind of related to that. It's a question about the amendment. So, what does it mean by urgent and necessary? What does it mean in practice? So, do we have some examples of the kind of amendments we might be talking about? Because I think it's quite important for the board to understand the democratic oversight there.
Thank you. Yeah, a good example really of that is where we'll need to conduct a review of the Constitution in advance of that mayoral election. We need to ensure that it's fit for purpose at that point. And with a pre-election period, obviously in advance of that, and the timescales that are required to approve a review of the Constitution, to bring any proposed amendments and seek board approval. It was anticipated that this delegation to make urgent and necessary changes may be required to ensure that these can be made in time for the Mayor. However, wherever it is possible to bring amendments to this board for consultation or ideally approval, that would be the chosen course of action. And in any event, the board will always be consulted.
Okay, that's reassuring, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you. Could you please explain how does the local assurance framework apply to all decisions, and will there be proportionality for small and low risk decisions?
The local assurance framework, it does apply to all decisions because that ensures legality, transparency and value for money. It is explicitly risk and based value. So to answer your question, smaller, low risk decisions would follow a lighter, faster process. And then there'd be more scrutiny and process reserved for those larger, higher risk, more complex proposals.
Thank you. That's reassuring on both sides of that.
Thank you.
Excellent. And Councillor Mundry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can a monitoring officer confirm that the Constitution is not conflict with the statutory constitution, then the Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority or the scheduled 2026 schedule.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the Constitution has been carefully drafted to ensure that it conforms with that statutory constitution. So just to explain that a bit further, the Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority Order in 2026, it sets out in the schedule a statutory constitution, so that's been laid down in law, and it can't be amended by the Combined Authority. So I can confirm that all of the terms of the Combined Authority Constitution to be approved today, which we sometimes refer to as the local constitution to avoid that confusion with the statutory constitution, the two align together and there's no conflict.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think that was a really comprehensive overview. Kath talked us through the number of recommendations that are shown at item number 2, which I won't go through again. It's been proposed and seconded. Can I see all those in favour? Okay, that's clearly carried. Thank you very much. And next item is the budget report, really important because we can't do anything unless we've got some money. And actually this is the time when we will be looking forward to how we can access government funding to spend it on our key priorities. But the budget before you is set at a fairly high level in the report, and we will have an opportunity from John in a moment to introduce it. But just as a very quick overview, the transport budgets are the most significant budgets within the report, making up nearly half of the revenue budget and most of the capital programme, which I know John will cover. There's also capacity funding that we've received to set up the combined authority, and that's from government. And finally, there's the Mayoral Investment Fund, which is included in our budget for 26-27. So John, can I ask you to give an overview of this in more detail? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. That's a really helpful introduction. And just to expand a little bit on that, I mean, I suppose the first thing to say, just to echo and underline your point in terms of this is a fairly high-level budget at this stage, and we will work with members and the Combined Authority team to develop this budget into more detailed set of proposals, into priorities, obviously, that will emerge over the course of the year. So we will continue to bring back financial information on that basis, and this is a fairly high level. If I can just quickly go through maybe a couple of key points within the report. Funding streams are set out in 4.4 in the report. So as you said, £11 million of the 23 million revenue budget is the local transport authority funding on the revenue side. We also have a capacity grant from government of 2.8 million, some carried forward grants of just over 2 million, and some partner funding of 1.6 million. So that's broadly where our funding comes from. And then if you look a little bit further down the report, revenue expenditure budgets in 4.8 just set out some of the broad areas that we've allocated that funding to across democratic activities, the core officer structure, those functional areas, so transport being the main one, but not forgetting skills and employment as well. Setting out some of the strategic commissions, which will be developed in further detail. Some of the support services, the Mayoral Investment Fund is there, and we talked about elections and some of the funding for that a little bit earlier on. Just a couple of points to note, just from a sort of Chief Financial Officer, Section 73 officer point of view, just to be able to provide this advice to the board. The first thing that the report also sets out, I suppose, in terms of advice is around adequacy of levels of reserves. So as you can see in the report, it sets out a level of reserves. We've set aside some funding for elections, as we talked about earlier, just to start to build up that budget for next year's mayoral election. But we have also set aside 2.5 million in a general reserve, and I think my view is that is an adequate amount of reserves to have at this stage for where we are as a combined authority. And the budget we're setting at this stage. So that's the first point to note in terms of reserves. The report also just sets out a number of risks in the budget. I won't go through this in detail just in the introduction, but it sets out around inflation, grant income, staffing costs, investment risk, governance and compliance, and so on. And then there is a section 23 statement within the report, which is really my assurance to the board on the robustness of the estimates within this and around adequacy of levels of reserves. And I know officers from constituent authorities have done a brilliant job in pulling this information together and making sure it's robust. And I've been through that with those officers over the last couple of weeks, so I can give that assurance to the board. So just to wrap up and perhaps just to summarise the recommendations that are set out in the report. So firstly, to approve the proposed revenue budget for the authority. Secondly, to approve the proposed capital budget for the authority. To approve the adoption of the Treasury management strategy for the first year of the Combined Authorities operation. To approve that the Combined Authority opts into the public sector audit appointment scheme, which is very common. So I think, as far as I'm aware, all Combined Authorities opt into that national scheme, as do most local authorities. So to be able to appoint external auditors for us as a Combined Authority. Delegating authority to Chief Finance Officer to accept DFT's funding. And finally, just that point to note that I will be back to the board in due course with further budget updates alongside business planning and priorities that emerge through the year. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Do I have a seconder for this report? Councillor
Happy to second the report.
Thank you very much. So we've got some questions for you. Councillor Mundry, would you like to start?
Yes, sure, thank you, Chair. Can you explain a bit more about the approach to the use of the Integrated Transport Fund and Bus Services Fund for 2026-27?
Yeah, thank you very much. So a couple of things to say on that. So the first thing to say is, as set out in the recommendation, so the recommendation gives me authority to, in effect, accept the Department for Transport's grant on behalf of the Combined Authority, so we will progress that. Transport plans have been developed by the 3 constituent authorities, and funding comes into us as a combined authority, and then flows through to constituent authorities, and we're working through the sort of the process and the approach of doing that right now. As you know, Lawrence Wilson has just arrived as Director of Transport. I'm sure you've met already, and we're working through that approach between the combined authority and the constituent authorities. I think the important thing perhaps to say is that there will be no hiatus on delivery, so we'll make sure that we absolutely keep going. But obviously, transport is an incredibly important part of what the combined authority does, and we'll want to develop strategic plans, long-term plans with the board, with the combined authority team, and with constituent authorities and other stakeholders. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Chair. So, I think it's great news that the Combined Authority will now start to be able to access the Mayoral Investment Fund. And I just thought it'd be helpful if you could explain to us a bit more about how those proposals will be developed and agreed, and also how the funding will be used, and perhaps a little bit in that about the role of this board as well.
Yeah, thank you. So, probably a couple of things to say on that. The Mayoral Investment Fund obviously is a really important part of what the combined authority does, and what not just now, but kind of in the future, in the longer term. Perhaps echo something that Nick, I know you mentioned a little bit earlier on before the meeting around actually the Mayoral Investment Fund is about funding priorities in the region, but also it's a huge opportunity to be able to lever in funding, so actually a catalyst for even greater investment into the region. So I think there are many ways that we can use the Mayoral Investment Fund, and just as a sort of a principle, I think that's the important thing for us to keep in mind. I suppose in practical terms, one of the things that I need to make sure I do is work with the Combined Authority team just to make sure we have a really strong, a really rigorous process around how we develop business cases, how we appraise those, how we do the necessary due diligence, and we work with you as a board to be able to bring those forward. Some of that is set out in the local assurance framework that Kath recently took us through in the previous item. So we really just need to kind of work and develop that process in a bit more detail, and certainly the aim is for a further update to the June board with, I think, more in terms of that process, but potentially a little bit more in terms of what might come through in the pipeline as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Gorman.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Chair, I was just recording no hiatus on delivery of transport budgets to local authorities. Just making sure I got that right.
Thank you, Councillor Gorman.
Can I just ask really, John, the Combined Authority is a completely new entity.
That's all I have to say.
Can you expand on the work that is currently underway to ensure that the authority has the necessary structures and support services in place to ensure it's geared up to deliver for Cheshire and Warrington?
Thank you. I think, again, a really important question, a really important piece of work for us as a team, and certainly something that that Nick and Kath and I and others have been talking about in the relatively brief time that I've been working as part of the team. I suppose the first one of the things to say, I think there's been a huge amount of work already done through many colleagues from constituent councils in terms of making sure that we have some good foundations to work on. So it's, just some of the basics around making sure that we can, that we can have a finance system and make payments and payroll and all those sorts of things. So a huge amount of work that's gone on in the background just to make sure that we're in a good position on day one. I think you've already seen as well, obviously, a huge amount of work done around the legal governance, constitution and such like in the previous agenda item. I think the things that we're working through now are around making sure that we have all of the things in place around things like audit, around compliance, around risk management. Really, I suppose, just in terms of understanding across the team who's responsible for what, and that we're all really, really clear about our kind of schemes of delegation and such like. And also, I suppose, thinking about we really helpfully have access to support services via constituent councils at the moment in the short term, and we need to think through, does that work as a longer term arrangement, or are there kind of different options, and we need to go through some of those options. So I think it's a really important piece of work, and it's something we've certainly got an eye on as a combined authority team, and I'm sure happy to provide a more detailed briefing to members in due course as we work that through over the next couple of months.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That was a really good answer, actually, and good to hear. Councillor Flaherty, do you want to come in?
Thank you. Yes, John, could you tell us about what are the key risks that have been considered in setting the combined authority budget for 26-27, please?
Yeah. Thank you. I think I very briefly touched on it in introduction, but I didn't go into any detail. I think just sort of giving a bit of a flavour of the sort of risks associated with the budget. I mean, one of the things that is perhaps different, or is certainly different from in a combined authority budget compared to local authority budgets, is that we don't have sort of demand-led budgets. And I've previously worked as a director of finance in councils, and that is a challenging environment, in terms of social care, in terms of homelessness and housing and other things, where really, really important services that councils need to deliver, where actually demand fluctuates significantly, and that can be a real challenge in terms of setting a budget. The combined authority doesn't have those demand-led budgets in quite the same way, so I think in some ways that risk doesn't exist in quite the same way. Having said that, as we all know, we live in a relatively sort of volatile economic environment at the moment globally. There are many things that we need to be kind of mindful of in setting our budgets. I think the investment risk, I think, is really important, and it was set out in the report, so just to draw that out a bit, and I think that's the point, I suppose, in terms of the Mayoral Investment Fund, the due diligence, the governance around that, just to make sure we're really, really clear that when we're making investment decisions, we know what we're doing, we're transparent about it, everyone is comfortable with risk associated with that. And then finally, and set out briefly in the report, I think that sort of governance and compliance risk is really important. We are a new organisation, and we're developing some of our systems and our processes, and we just need to be careful that we don't trip ourselves up on something that wouldn't be an issue necessarily for a very established organisation that's been around for some time. So yeah, that'd be my summary.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got a number of recommendations at CNET 2, which John has talked us through, been proposed and seconded. Can I see all those in favour? That's clearly carried. Thank you very much. The next item is devolution programme closure. I'm going to hand over to Councillor Shaw, who's going to talk us through this.
Thanks, Chair. And I think we've mentioned numerous times today that a lot of the items on the agenda today are procedural or statutory and unnecessary, but I just want to take a moment to reflect before I sort of introduce the formal part of the closure report. I think I mean, this report is symbolic because it is closing down all of the work that's been done for setting up the Combined Authority, the Shadow Combined Authority, and for its inauguration today. But there was a long journey that we've been on much before that, and I think those of us that have been around a while have probably been involved in some way or another in devolution discussions for about 10 years now. I think it's been that long since we first started discussing it. And so just to give that background, and we did have a couple of false starts, but when we were given the opportunity to be on one of the first in the country really on this priority programme, we grabbed it with both hands and we moved forward at pace because we'd done a lot of the work. And I think what's really powerful about it is the collaboration that operates across the 3 constituent councils, and the fact that we all had one voice really. We might have differences in approaches sometimes, but actually we want to see what's best for our whole region, and we see the importance that that will bring for our residents, our businesses and all our communities, and not forgetting the important role that will play for young people too, hence why we're here. So it really is a pleasure to be at this critical moment today. So it's, you know, bringing forward this report and trying to bring it to life is so significant. Closing down all of the work that's been done to hand over to the newly established Combined Authority, and it's a good opportunity to welcome all the newly appointed officers as well. So without further ado then, just to give you the detail on the closure report, the programme has successfully taken Cheshire and Warrington from the devolution priority programme status through consultation, council approvals and transition, and to the legal establishment of the Combined Authority, which took place in February 2026, with governance, assurance, finance and delivery arrangements in place from day one of the operation. So the programme was delivered within its £1.275 million budget, with around £1 million spent, reflecting prudent use of resources and careful management of risk, while approvals to proceed with devolution and creation of the Combined Authority were secured. While some of the interim recruitment delays constrained capacity ahead of the go-live, this approach did avoid abortive costs and ensured value for money. Importantly, the programme has unlocked long-term benefits for the region, including, and we've heard this mentioned many times, the access to around £650 million of investment funding over 30 years, and that is a floor, not a ceiling. We've heard already from Nick this morning about how that can lever in further funding. And it's also brought ongoing capacity funding and devolved powers that were previously held nationally. And I should say as well, there are other additional grants that are received which are usually enhanced for combined authorities, which makes a difference from the grants given to the top tier level authorities. So it does bring with it some benefit. The closure report also sets out how outstanding actions, risks and learning will transition into business as usual, with clear ownership within the combined authority and continued oversight by the interim team. Lessons learned have been captured to strengthen future delivery and partnership working as the organisation moves into its operational phase. And the board is therefore asked to approve the programme closure and handover of responsibility, marking a clear transition from a time-limited programme into a fully operational combined authority. And once again, Chair, I'd just like to thank all of the officers and staff from across all 3 councils for their involvement in that and the really hard work that they've done to get us to this point, as well as to welcome the new officers of the combined authority. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I just add on that thanks to all of you, because we've worked, you know, we've had obstacles along the way. It feels like a song that I'm about to burst into, but I think we've all worked really well together, and you know, real collaboration and recognising how we need to support each other. So massive thank you to all of you, because it's without you we couldn't have got to this stage, and to the wider elected members as well. So a big thank you there. Okay, so Karen's proposed this. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Mundry. Now we've got some questions. I think we're going to ask you these, Nick, now. Nick W. Jean, do you want to ask the first one, please?
Thank you, Chair. Could you tell us what remains in flight, if anything, and why is that, or why would that not be a reason to keep the programme open?
Thank you, Councillor. We're at a position where, whilst we're now fully established and we've achieved the main aims, there are a number of functions that are currently held elsewhere that now need to be transferred into the organisation. Skills is a very good example of this, where we will get the statutory duties, but there are a large number of delivery partners. However, keeping the programme open would be contradictory, because what we now need to do is to work with the board to be clear about what future priorities will be, and therefore what the opportunity is by working across the region to work at scale, but where appropriate to delegate potentially even further than where those processes are held at the moment. So the intention is that for the next 8 months, the Combined Authority will have both its permanent structure but also a small transition team responsible for those necessary and legacy issues to be picked up, reviewed with the board and then taken forward. Skills, a really good example, but business support arrangements as well. And I'm really grateful to officers across the region who are now working with the Combined Authority to identify opportunities to do exactly that. I would also note that over the coming year, functions currently held by Enterprise Cheshire and Warrington become statutory responsibilities of the Combined Authority, and therefore we need to work, and I'm working very closely with the Joint Committee and with leading officers to identify the best way to transfer both those functions but also the deep knowledge, skills and experience so that nothing is lost in this period. So that process will continue over the next 6 months, and we've asked Sandra Rothwell to continue in her role to ensure that there's continuity over those processes as well. If I might just take a moment here, Chair, just to note 2 things alongside that. The first is we're incredibly grateful to other Combined Authorities who've given freely of their time, and I know Councillor Shaw has mentioned this in supporting us, and we therefore felt it was really, really important, and thank you to Councillor Shaw for support here, to conduct quite a formal closure report of this basis, because it will allow us to leave something for those that come behind us, and let us hope the devolution journey continues. But if I might, I'd like in this first contribution to a meeting just to formally note the significant contribution of Laura Edwards, the Programme Manager, who in the background has worked to both deliver, to get us to here in good order, and to deliver this report. And sometimes those officers at a more junior level that we all work with don't get the due recognition they did, often for doing this at the side of their desk. So I'd really like to thank Laura publicly for that.
He's hiding at the back. Laura, you'll have to come nearer the front in future. Okay, right. Councillor Mannion, I think you've got a question as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to preface that. The word unique is overused, but we have been on a unique journey. We've never done it before, and we'll never do it again. And there has been pain. There have been challenges along the way. There have been changes along the way. But I'd like to echo the fact that a lot of what we've done over the last 18 months, 2 years, we've done as well as a lot of people have taken on, both on the political and our officers, new challenges, which have been a first experience for many of this on the devolution journey, and we've got there. We've launched, and we are recognised. I understand, and I'm told by people as widely varied as from MHCLG and the other areas on the priority programme, that we've got it about right. We've done well. We've navigated through the challenges, and to thank a lot of people in the back office who make things happen, and they've helped us to deliver a combined authority launched in April this year. So a big shout out for them. I've just got one question, and again it's thanks Chester West and Chester Council. I've been the host, and they've taken on a lot of heavy lifting. So what are the hosting arrangements going forward, and what's the forward/exit strategy for that, Nick?
Thank you for that, Councillor. John Hooton referred to a little bit of this.
Yeah, I did.
So first of all, Cheshire West and Chester have hosted a large amount of the programme and project management. That will now transfer into the combined authority, and John Hooton and I are working on arrangements for a significant programme management function to do exactly that, and to do that in as light touch a way as we can to ensure that it doesn't become hugely burdensome. But Cheshire West and Chester are also currently hosting many of our essential support services that allow us to be an organisation, as John referred to, payroll, procurement arrangements, recruitment arrangements. At the annual general meeting, to anticipate the next item, there will be a number of reports brought forward now where an organisation that can bring them forward that allow us to do those things in our own right. So some of the technical hosting will come to an end at that moment, the ability to appoint our own officers, procurement regulations, but the underpinning systems will continue to be provided by Cheshire West until such time as we're able to make a decision about where best value for money comes from for an organisation of our size. So a very good example of that would be, we're very grateful to, I think, all directors of finance for the support they've given, and for Cheshire West for hosting our ledger within their financial system. But actually, our estimate, our first guess is that we probably don't need something of the scale and sophistication of a council finance system going forward, because we're a much simpler organisation, and we will look to find an alternative and potentially more cost efficient solution that fits the organisation we are, because we're not a council. So it's those HR finance functions that are currently being hosted, but we need to make sure we get to a fit for purpose solution so we don't end up doing the jumping to something simply because it's not what we've got at the moment. Both John and I, to assure members, bear the scars and the benefits of moving to different finance, HR and procurement solutions, and we'll be anxious to avoid those mistakes.
Yeah.
Good, that's excellent. So recommendations are shown at 2. It's been proposed and seconded. Can I see all those in favour? Great, thank you. That's clearly carried. The final item is the calendar of future meetings and forward plan. This is just for noting, but I know we've got a few points that we want to raise. Kath, can you just explain why there are no key decisions in the forward plan?
Yes, absolutely. So ordinarily the forward plan would contain a forward plan of key decisions which require 28 days notice. But in order to have key decisions identified and then put forward on that forward plan, first of all we need a constitution, which I'm delighted to say that we've obviously approved today. But also under that constitution we need an overview and scrutiny committee established to take a view on which items will be key decisions going forward. So items will be identified in due course and a relevant forward plan of key decisions published, but at this stage the forward plan we're referring to is just a forward plan of business for future meetings.
Good. And Nick, we've got the annual meeting in June. Can you just sort of describe what's going to happen there?
Yes, thank you very much. I've started to say that some of these meetings feel a bit like the equivalent of the public sector hokey cokey. You're in and then you're out. You may have seen I did a version of that earlier, and very much one of the important items at the annual general meeting is to reconfirm the membership of the board. And that needs to happen following the annual general meetings of the constituent councils, who are the duly nominated bodies to provide membership. And it is not for this body to second guess the sovereign decisions of those individual organisations, which will happen in the coming month. Likewise, for those organisations to identify deputies and nominees for the relevant statutory committees. So that business will happen as part of the annual general meeting, alongside, if you like, the organisation pressing start. And so there are a number of important decisions that will come forward at that point. Some of them are of the typical bureaucratic, but no less important, trade union agreement, pay, salary scales. There's been much work done in that space, but they will be brought forward for approval, which then allow us to become an employer and start the process of recruiting individuals. And there will be the first consideration of the mayoral investment fund, as John outlined. Officers from the constituent authority with the combined authority are now working on those outline proposals, and we will make first commitments for some of those cases to be taken forward to the point where we can then take much bigger spending decisions at that moment. So it will feel, Chair, at that moment that business is beginning to happen. I also anticipate that during this period, members of the board and members of the combined authority staff will begin the process of building those consultation and engagement sessions, both formally and informally, with the intention to hold a much broader launch event for all stakeholders and partners late in June, where we can begin to talk about aspirations for the mayoral fund, which will have been set out at the meeting on the 12th, back to my point about the hokey-cokey. I hope that's helpful. Kath may want to add a little colour about the format of the annual general meeting, if that's helpful, but I hope that's covered things off.
I think you've covered everything actually, Nick. I was just going to say it will seem a little bit of repetition of what we've already done here, but it was just the nature of the timing of the meetings.
Okay. And then in September, I know we've got transport delivery plan and the skills plan. So Councillor Mundry, can you just talk through what that's likely to mean in September about the transport item?
I think with the transportation side of things, we will become the actual the authority with all the transport funding directly coming out of the government to this authority. But the government has asked each individual authority to do a 3-4 year plan, 3-year revenue, 4-year plan going forward. They're already working on that and already got them delivered. So what we'd have to say, we'd have to acknowledge them, take account of them, and in year one, the anticipation is that we'll transport the money straight across to the authorities within line with their plans they put forward. We can't guarantee to do that in years 2, 3 and 4 because we obviously got the mayor elected by then. So it's a question of making sure each authority has got some security that they know that the funding year one will be transferred across in full, and then we need to look at when the mayor's elected, what happens with the year 2, 3 and 4 of them plans. But bear in mind, you'll have to take account of what each authority has already done and what they're expecting to do to deliver.
Absolutely, thank you for that. Councillor Shaw, do you want to talk through about skills?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just briefly, I mean, you've mentioned already that the Cheshire and Warrington skills plan is required to be produced by September 2026. And how we're going to do that, I'll come to in just a moment. But I do want to take the opportunity to thank the people involved in the work that's been done so far, because I think that's put us in a good position, and particularly Pat Jackson from Enterprise Cheshire and Warrington, but also all the other officers from the 3 constituent authorities. So the combined authority now is in a good position to be able to produce that plan. It is a key milestone in our transition to a full devolved delivery of skills and employment functions, and our transition timeline anticipates that a local skills plan should be completed by December 2026, alongside the early transfer of initial devolved programmes and skills plan funds into the combined authority. And this timeline has been set by government, so we must meet those deadlines. In readiness for this, we expect to be presenting a draft plan for wider consultation to this board in September of this year, as I've said. And in practical terms, producing the plan by the end of the year will give the combined authority a single agreed framework to bring together the evidence on the local skills needs, align the activity with the Cheshire and Warrington Local Skills Improvement Plan and related strategies, and also to set clear priorities for commissioning and delivery across programmes already in motion including the Get Cheshire and Warrington Working and the Connect to Work plan, which we've all been involved closely with, and I want to thank the elected members as well from the 3 authorities that have been involved in developing those, as well as the officers. So really, in simple terms, this is about being ready and coherent and making sure that we have an agreed plan in place before powers and funding do scale up, so that decisions about investment, providers and outcomes are joined up and evidence-led and clearly aligned to the ambitions of the new Cheshire and Warrington Combined Authority. So it's timely that we're here, but it's not just about it's about younger people. It's about all adult skills. So I move the report for noting, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And that actually brings our meeting to a close. Thank you very much for everyone who's participated. Thank you to the members of the public who put their questions in, and thank you to the elected members as well. And thank you all for coming, and hopefully they will get a bit more exciting as we put a bit of meat on the bones. But I thought we actually thought it'd be really useful to talk through all of that. We could have just nodded the reports through, but I know we do get questions of why are you doing this, why are you doing that. So that's why it's probably we've gone into a lot more detail around governance-y things than perhaps we will do in the future. But thank you all for coming and have a good day. Thank you.